Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the 2010 romance comedy film, more romance than comedy, but romance film, Letters to Juliet. So this stars Amanda Seyfried, Christopher Egan plays Charlie, Marcia DeBonis is in this film. I think she plays our character Arlene, and right, Arlene. Do I have this up? Lorraine, excuse me. She plays Arlene in a different film. A bunch of other people are in this. Um, we inadvertently did a Marcia DeBonis marathon with 2004's 13 going on 30, 2009 Bride Wars, and then here we are, 2010's Letter to Juliet. Did not plan that at all. I don't know how it happened. It just popped up in suggestions. I was going through Max, and I was like, we'll do a rom-com marathon. We haven't done that in a while. She plays a secretary in 13 going on 30. That's 2004. Marsha plays a secretary in 2009 Bride Wars, and then she plays a secretary in 2010's Letters to Juliet. I did not plan on a Marsha DeBonis marathon. We're gonna hashtag this. I might have to make a separate playlist. I genuinely have no idea why I inadvertently just had a Marsha DeBonis marathon, but having them one right after each other, I'm so happy we did because I did not know she was in this. Did know she was in this, and I'm watching the first one and I'm like, okay, that's a good character, and then I'm watching the second one, Bride Wars, and I'm like, didn't we just see her and play the same a secretary? And then we're watching the third one, Letters to Juliet, and I'm like, didn't she? Is that the same? Oh my, same earpiece, right? Talking on the, bro. I freaked. What are the odds that that happened? That the three movies that I happened to watch run right after each other without planning it was a mini marathon for one particular actress. Incredible, incredible. She plays that stereotype so well. She's been in so many films. Does not get enough credit, and I'm so happy that that actually happened because it doesn't happen. That's never happened to me. I've never inadvertently had a marathon with one particular actress. I've planned marathon with a certain actor or actress, but I've never inadvertently had a marathon with a certain actor or actress. Very interesting. Absolutely love it. Still am gushing about it. Good for you, Marsha. Good for you. Thank you. So, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Now I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I feel like a terrible person now that we're ranting. Anyway, Letters to Juliet, 2010. So Taylor Swift's album came out in '08, which had Love Story, which then she remastered to Taylor's version for 2023. Thankfully, she now has her own masters. But in the song specifically is, talking about Juliet and love story and stuff, right? Marry Me, Juliet. And a lot of guys propose uh, at Taylor Swift concerts. We see the videos all the time, specifically to that song. And that song's heavily featured, towards the end of this film, rightfully so. And it works out because it's Letters to Juliet, and the song's about Juliet. It works out, right? So, Romeo and Juliet, the classic Shakespearean play. I hate William Shakespeare's way of writing. I don't like that old English. I'm not a fan of it. It just bores me to tears. Certain elements are fine. Obviously, pop culture has been referenced it since the dawn of time, and we all know, the stories and the basic stories. We know, certain iterations of it, and that's fine. We'll keep milking the cow because the cow is still producing, right? So this story has Sophie, played by Amanda Seyfried, and then Chris Egan's character is Charlie. And how did the two of them meet, right? Sophie is engaged to Victor, and they're off to Italy so he can, for a vacation. But while they're there, he's meeting vendors, he's bidding on wine, stuff like that for his new restaurant opening in New York. And then she happens to go to Verona, I think, and to see, this. And she's trying to be a writer in New York. And so she goes to Verona, sees this wall where Juliet's apparent house was, and the apparent balcony where she said down to Romeo, we're out there, Romeo. And so girls from all over the world come, write letters to Juliet, put it on the wall, and then each night uh, people collect them and then write back. They're called the secretaries of Juliet. So Amanda's character of Sophie is helping them at one point, asking, because she, it's a good story. And she finds a letter tucked behind one of these broken cracks in the rock that it was from 50 years ago. And so she writes back as Juliet, and then a week goes by because her and her fiance are in for like 2 weeks or something like that. And then the grandson of Claire, the woman who she wrote to, comes and says, "How dare you, my grandmother, has lived her life, and why give her all this false hope when this Lorenzo that she was madly in love with back in the day, could be dead at this point, back in the summer of 1957 when they met, and that was it." So, turns out Charlie had brought Claire, his grandmother, to see a Lorenzo, but there's so many of these specific Lorenzo, last name starts with a B, throughout this particular part of Italy. They had to narrow it down. So then it was a scavenger hunt in regards to finding all these Lorenzos, and Claire would only know who the proper Lorenzo was, and then eventually they find a vineyard, and she sees this kid, this teenager, 20-something-year-old, working on these grapevines, and she's freaking out. She's like, "Oh my God, it's Lorenzo!" And then Charlie's thinking that she's having heat stroke, but it turns out it was the grandson of this Lorenzo. That's why they look so similar. And so they meet, and they all catch up, and it's all lovey-dovey and wonderful. But Sophie's falling in love with Charlie, even though she's engaged to Victor. But then she doesn't want to be engaged to Victor because they're so separate, they're so distant. So then she winds up kissing Charlie, going back to New York, coming back for Claire and Lorenzo's wedding, and then Charlie and Sophie have a lovely balcony moment of themselves. He falls off a grapevine vine, climbing up to try to kiss her. They kiss on the grass. They all live happily ever after. So it's just such a great romance film. It's such a great romance film. It's such an uplifting what if. And there's that whole beautiful speech at the wedding, with Claire reading back the letter that Juliet wrote to her. What and if are two very, non-threatening words when used separately, but together, fearful, something like that. Gorgeous. And the two, when they first see each other for the first time, when he gets off the horse and she's walking slowly to him, you just get choked up and you're like, wow, what if 50 years ago something happened and it's still on your mind? It's your canon event. And now thanks to Across the Spider-Verse, we can use these terms at certain aspects of life, certain canon event. Something happens and it's a canon event. It's supposed to happen. Doesn't matter what timeline, what universe. This is the canon event, and that happens to be the canon event. So what canon event in your life happened that you might potentially need to revisit, that you could revisit, that you might revisit in a what if I revisit that? It's cool. It's a really cool way of thinking in a romance film. Yes, there's the romance level, I want someone to love me for me and stuff like that. Great, wonderful, terrific. But it gives a lot of life lessons along the way too, and it's very surprising. Amanda's a great actress, and Chris is a great actor in general, so the two of them work very well together. Very beautiful dynamic of enemies to lovers kind of a thing at the end. I'm just very impressed with the film. This is like the second time I've seen it, actually. I think I only watched it when it first came out, and I remember really liking it, but I never revisited it. I don't know. I don't know why I never saw it again, but I will definitely watch this again soon because it's just a great uplifting what if kind of a thing. It's good for the mind. It's good for the body. It's good for the soul. It's good for the heart. It's good for the energy. Keep the vibes good. That's all we need. The good vibes. Good vibes for this film. Letters to Juliet, 2010. I still can't believe we did that marathon inadvertently, but it's still great. It's still great that we did that. But yeah, on to the next review. Mucho mahalo.